Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way for our reaction to today's Glasgow Derby defeat for Celtic. It was Rangers 3, Celtic nothing. Rodgers' side suffer a painful Glasgow Derby defeat at Ibrox. It was a first half goal from Yanis Hadji, followed up by second half goals from Robin Proper and Danilo to make it 3-0 to the home side in the game. Celtic had some chances, one from Kyogo that he put in the back of the net that was ruled out, quite rightly ruled out for offside. But apart from that, it was half chances. Tony, you were at the game today. I don't need to ask you how you're doing after that one, but what did you make of that 90 plus minutes of a performance, if that's what you want to call it?
I think it was quite lamentable, wasn't it? If you're a Celtic supporter, the better team won. I think Celtic were outfought and outran. Midfield was posted missing. And I think the first comment there, poor day at the office, Gordon Robb, yep, it is a poor day at the office, but I think everybody was surprised at how poor it was, Ryan, and the nature of the defeat. Nobody saw it coming. It was left field. I think everybody was predicting those kind of scorelines the other way. But it just shows you when you're not at it, you get what's coming to you at times. And Rangers well worthy winners today. You cannot take that away from them. But Celtic performance today was, I don't even think disappointing covers it. I think stinking covers it, Ryan, to be honest.
It's probably a correct adjective that you would use to describe that game this afternoon. It was just a poor game from basically start to finish from Celtic. I thought they started okay, and then they shot themselves in the foot by giving the ball away. Liam Scales, who had a dreadful game at centre-back. There was no other words for it. He was absolutely dreadful. Wasn't the only one, because I don't think any of the midfield played to their level whatsoever, especially Hatate and McGregor, I would say. Bernardo was anonymous as well for large parts. He was also partly to blame for the goal for not taking down Raskin before he gave the ball to Hadji. It's a good finish from the Romanian, but maybe it's one that Kasper Schmeichel maybe could have done better with, but it's right in the corner. It's a good finish from the Romanian international, so no complaints about that. And from then on, Tony, it felt like an uphill battle for Celtic. The crowd were up for it. They had their tails were up, and it didn't look at any point as if Celtic maintained any control of the game. They had control for about 2-3 minutes of the game until the slack passes started, and then it was 1-0. So what did you make of that goal?
I made the point to Brendan Rodgers that it's very rare to see a Rodgers team have no sustained period of pressure in a football match. They'd none the whole game, and I think that's pretty unacceptable, especially at a venue like Ibrox, Ryan. But first goal, again, I know what I'm watching with Liam Scales, and I've said before, as much as he is, he's a decent player and he's played well for Celtic, I always feel there's a rickets in him. And his distribution, I've said before, like Hatate's, is erratic. And that's it. Sometimes
especially when they're passing to each other.
Yeah. And you saw it in the cup final, Ryan. Rangers played the same way they did in the cup final. And that's why you were talking about off-air that the manager might not be exempt. He shouldn't be exempt because he knew Rangers were going to play that way. They were going to shut them, the midfield down and mark them very closely. There would be no space. They would hunt in packs. And as it turned out, Rangers got a lot of joy from that. And they targeted Liam Scales as a weak link. And he's a weak link in terms of his distribution. And he's a weak link when he's carrying the ball forward because he ends up running out of ideas and not knowing what to do with it. And that inevitably leads to either him passing it out the park or passing it to a Rangers player. And he gave up cheap possession for the first goal. And Raskin's managed to shunt it to Hadji. Could Schmeichel have done better? Is right in the corner, but I don't know if he was unsighted, but I'm not going to have a go at Schmeichel. He's been wonderful since he turned up, so he'd maybe beaten by the accuracy of the effort, but lots of things could have been done to prevent that opening goal. But again, it's Liam Scales' Achilles heel, and every time he kind of makes mistakes, it seems to cost Celtic dear.
Yeah, just going to go through some of the stats from the game, which the one that surprised me the most at full time. I watched the game on the TV in the house. Celtic had 61% of the ball today. It didn't feel like that when I was watching the game at all, because yes, they had the ball, but they were doing nothing with it. Nothing. They were giving it away, or they were passing it back, or they were or they were getting chased down by Rangers, and Rangers simply just wanted it on the day more than Celtic. I thought the midfield maybe could have learned something from Nico Raskin today, because he was everywhere on the football park, but he wasn't the only one for Rangers. They were fired up, they were ready, they were an understrength Rangers team. But as I said on Twitter with the tweet that I put out midway through the second half, you would have thought that it was Celtic with the depleted defensive backline.
Yeah.
Because to a man, Rangers were better than Celtic in every single department, going forward, at the back, and most importantly in midfield. Expected goals, Rangers had 2.13, so they scored 3 from 2.13, so they overperformed slightly. But I think that was probably down to the fact that Celtic were giving them chances as well, offering them great opportunities. Celtic's expected goals was 0.07, Tony. That is so low for Celtic. 24 shots for Rangers to Celtic's 4, 9 on target for Rangers to Celtic's 1, big chances 3 to Celtic's nothing. Celtic had more passes, they committed more fouls, more offsides, and they had less corners than Rangers. So looking at the stats out with possession, Rangers deserved to win the game, and that's exactly what happened. It's good having possession of the ball, but it's got to be sustained possession and possession with purpose, and there was no purpose in the possession today whatsoever.
There was purpose about Rangers today. They played like they were drinking in the last chance title saloon and gave their manager their all today. And Celtic just simply couldn't match that. And you don't know whether that being 14 points ahead, I don't care what anybody says, right, it does seep into the mind. The manager said they played without an edge. Why did Celtic play without an edge today in a Glasgow Derby, where you could go 17 points clear and really, leave your rivals in the dust? As the only silver lining from today is that they are still 11 points ahead in the title race, and there's no been real title damage inflicted on them, Ryan. But it's, I'm not saying it's worrying. They've been absolutely outstanding for a year. They had 2 losses in the whole of the calendar year 2024, but they've just suffered 50% of those losses in one game in 2025. And it's not the game that you want to suffer a loss in. I don't mind getting beat, Ryan, but I think performances like that, when you fail to turn up, there has to be some sort of inquest as to why that happened, because you can't put your finger on it.
Do you think Celtic accepted defeat when the second goal went in the back of the net, Tony? I'm just going to lay it out straight to you. Do you think they accepted defeat? Do you think that their game was gone when it hit 2-0? Did the players show that emotion? Did they show that negative emotion that maybe the game was over, the game was a bogey after the second goal when Robin Proper scored?
I kept waiting for the second goal coming, Ryan, because Celtic, as I said, didn't have any period of sustained pressure. They had no, as my father used to say when I was a kid, they had no oohs and ahs. There was nothing to excite me about Celtic today, except for the fact that they kept giving the ball away. And it happened in the cup final, and they got away with it in the cup final, albeit on penalties. But they didn't get away with it today. And Rangers got the early goal, got the crowd where they wanted them, in a buoyant mood and enthusiastic behind their team. And the performances of Raskan, Diomande and Hadji to an extent lifted everybody, didn't it? Even Proper, who you would have targeted him as the kind of Liam Scales of the Rangers defence and tried to put him under pressure, but couldn't Maeda and Kyogo weren't at the races today. The Rangers back four weren't tested at all, were they?
No, and again, absolutely not.
And again, that stems from the fact that your midfield was posted missing. And I know Arne Engels was absent and would have played, but he was sick. And that's why Bernardo came in his place. But you say Bernardo was anonymous as well. I think that, with the exception of Cameron Carter, Vickers and Schmeichel, I don't think anybody gets anywhere near pass marks.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you give these players pass marks despite conceding 3 goals? Because one of them is part of the defence. No. The other one's the goalkeeper that's conceded the 3 goals. But I don't think any of them put a foot wrong, to be honest. I think with the 3 goals, that Kasper Schmeichel, it's a good save. But unfortunately for the second goal, it then falls to Proper, who can just tap it in from close range. It kind of just hits off Michael, and then it goes directly into his path. Could do nothing about the first and the third goals. I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers, if everybody played like Cameron Carter-Vickers did today, then I think the result might have been a bit better for Celtic. But unfortunately, he's doing the job of about 2 or 3 players in there. He's doing the job of all the midfielders as well and trying to create things by going high up in the pitch. But the problem with that is if he goes too far up the pitch, and he gets dispossessed, then there's a massive gap. And if Cameron Carter-Vickers is your best defender and he's out of position, then Celtic are in trouble. So it's pass marks. It's pass marks to an extent that will never be pass marks because it was a defeat at Ibrox against Rangers. It's a Glasgow Derby. Just a very, very poor day at the office for all 11 players and the 3 or 4 that came on, not just those that started the game. Tony,
but I agree with you to the extent they were resigned to their fate. I think they were just waiting for the second goal to go in and kind of chuck it and just say, right, let's try and get out of dodge with a 2-0 defeat. Daniel's goals the icing on the cake for Rangers, I guess, but you can't say they weren't worth it.
No, I thought they deserved. I don't think it flattered Rangers at all, given their dominance in the game in terms of midfield control, not possession, not in terms of possession, but in terms of the chances that they made. I don't think 3-0 flattered Rangers whatsoever. I think they were well worthy of their win, and we can front up, win, lose or draw, and say that they did deserve to win the game today because they were by far the better team. But it's been a great start to the season, Tony. Celtic were 14 points clear before this game was played. Rangers had dropped points in the last 2 games. It's now went down to 11 points. Rangers have a chance to close it to 8 before Celtic even kick off against St Mirren on Sunday afternoon. What's your viewpoint just now? It's the 2nd of January. We're in the transfer window. Celtic have just lost to Rangers in the Glasgow Derby. What's your overall feelings so far about this season? It's a disappointing one, but the bigger picture must be seen with the fact that this is Celtic's first league defeat of the season. It's January, it's at Ibrox, and they're still in a really, really good position domestically.
I think you take your dumps and you move on, Ryan. You have to.
Got
quickly. To. There's no other way, no 2 ways about it. So you just accept it, and it was a lamentable performance. It was abject, it was dismal, but and of all games to do that in or not to turn up in, it's not the one you want. But it's one game. It's the first loss of the season. You have to get that in perspective. They are 11 points clear in January, and we're playing today to go 17 clear. Granted, it didn't happen, but so the nature of the loss is maybe the thing that's causing Celtic supporters concern. So this is where the manager earns his corn, isn't it? And the players earned their corn as well. They didn't today. There'll be other opportunities to do that. You can't run away from the fact that today was as poor as it gets. Probably the poorest that a Celtic team has played in a derby match and over Brendan Rodgers' 2 spells in charge. It's his only second loss in 21. So that tells you the kind of dominance that he's had, or that Brendan Rodgers' Celtic teams have had in this fixture. It's a dunt in the chin, but you have to take it and say, right, okay, standing count, call it a wake-up call or whatever. But it can't become 2 or 3 games, Ryan. It has to stop here. End of. And you have to get back in the horse against St Mirren and we'll get back to business. As long as it's a temporary blip.
A blip and not a skid is what we talk about. You just want it to be a blip and not a skid, and you don't want it to affect other results as well. I think every football supporter in Glasgow would much rather be in Celtic's position right now than Rangers at the moment, celebrating a derby win, but still being 11 points behind their closest rivals and their greatest rivals than Celtic. Losing a derby, yes, the bragging rights are there for the blue side of the city, but Celtic are still 11 points clear, and they deserve to be there for the work that they've done this season. Similarly, how Rangers deserve to be 11 points behind after their first half of the season. Just a bad day at the office for Celtic. Yes, there'll be questions asked on certain players, maybe some players that might leave in the January window, see what happens, but it's the January window, anything can happen, signings can happen, a wee bit of a rejig can happen in certain positions of the squad, but it's a very reactionary place, I would say, at the moment, both positively and negatively. You've just got to have a look at it in the bigger picture. I understand the disappointment, but if you were going to be on one side at the moment, you'd rather be in Celtic's side than Rangers at this present moment with the way the league is going.
Today doesn't negate what's happened in the season up until now. It's a poor performance. It does happen. Celtic don't have a divine right to win every football match. There are times when they don't turn up, and they didn't turn up today. But it doesn't negate everything that they've achieved the season so far. They've still got 1 trophy in the cabinet, and they're sitting pretty. And we spoke before, and we've spoken all week. The worst case scenario happened today, but they're still 11 points clear in the title race. As you say, there's a January transfer window to come, and the manager said he wants to strengthen, so the team will get better. As I say, it's a dunt. Yeah, get that, but you have to get over it quickly. There's no point in dwelling on it because there was nothing there for Celtic to dwell on. There was no positives from that game at all today. So you just take it and you move on. That's what happens. These things happen in derby matches. You came with high hopes. You saw the two lineups and you thought it was there for the taking. Turns out it was, but not for the team that you all thought would take it. So that's what happens.
It's sport at the end of the day. Anything can happen. 11 men against 11 men. And it was a surprising result today. But when you watch the game, and when you watch the game back, as I will tomorrow, you'll see why Celtic deserved to get beat on the day, because the other team wanted it more. Just looking at, we're in the January transfer window now. It's the 2nd of January. Off the back of today's performance, what areas do you think need strengthened the most over this sort of 28, 29 days or so?
Still need a left back, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that they still need another enforcer in midfield and a winger.
I think that's a bigger thing to talk about, Tony. I'm sorry to interject.
Go on.
You there, but just Callum McGregor's performance today was quite. I'm not gonna go as far to say it was worrying, but it was a very quiet performance today from Callum McGregor, akin to the one that he maybe would have put in 4 or 5 years ago during the COVID season, where he was ineffectual and he allowed Rangers to run over the top of his midfield. Do you think there needs to be somebody with a bit more defensive acumen in that defensive midfield role? And maybe Callum McGregor pushes further forward? Could there maybe be a positional change and put Arne Engels in the number 6 position, or Paulo Bernardo, who played there one of the last times out? Is that maybe an avenue that Celtic go down?
Yeah, I still think we need you know me, I want brute force and strength in the middle of the park. I still think we need a midfield enforcer, a Victor Wanyama type, something like that. I still think there's room in the Celtic midfield for that, if we could source such a player. I think there's a lack of height in the Celtic team, isn't there? There's a lack of brute force and strength, and just for me, there are games that are tailor-made for players like that, and today was one of those games. And listen, I think today was a carbon copy of the cup final. It was just that Celtic were able to score goals in the cup final and create. Today they didn't. The warning signs were there in the cup final, but that's the way Rangers will play against you. Force the errors, force the issue, make mistakes. Celtic were their own worst enemy today at times. Granted, Rangers were better, but Celtic made a lot of self-inflicted mistakes and were punished for them. And, the midfield, it's funny how the last game, the midfield was a midfield that people saying would like to see more of moving forward, with McGregor not in the side. So, but you were never going to turn up at Ibrox and not play your skipper, were you?
I know. And maybe that's not a bigger issue, but a wider debate to have going forward, especially. And scales in a game like that, when you've got a £6 million defender sitting on the bench that hasn't even got on any minutes. If it was me, and I'm not Brendan Rodgers, and I'm not saying you'd want to be Brendan Rodgers, especially in that position today, at Ibrox when you're up against it. But at half time, I probably would have been doing the reverse sub that Rodgers did at Hampden and taking Scales off and bringing on Austin Trusty. I don't understand why he's had 0 game time since he came back from that illness. He's been fit enough for the bench. I think for Sunday, he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet. We've got to see him for a run of games alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, because every game that they played alongside each other, apart from the first half against Rangers in the League Cup final, which I didn't think he was disgracefully bad. They didn't put a foot wrong, either of them, and they looked as if they were building a really good partnership between the two of them. So I don't know if it's tinkering for the sake of tinkering, but I would like to see that defensive partnership come back, and I'd like to see Austin Trusty being alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers in that defence for the foreseeable. And I'd also like to see, despite having a poor performance when he came off the bench, I'd like to see Alex Bailly getting more of a run in the team. I know he was poor. I know he gave away the ball a couple of times, but so did Greg Taylor. So it's a bit of 6 half-a-dozen with the two of them, and I'd like to see that attacking fullback in action more against St Mirren on Sunday. Do you agree with those statements?
Yeah, lots of players didn't cover themselves in glory today, Ryan. Lots of them. You can go through the whole team and probably pick fault in all of them at some point. Quick point I do want to make is Arne Engels been hit by a coin. Hate to see that in football. Hate to see that in football at any level, any supporters, and it's just that, it's our unique selling point, our showpiece game, Ryan. And again, fans have disgraced themselves by aiming objects at players, and I'd say the same if it was Celtic fans doing it to Rangers players. It's unacceptable, loutish behaviour, Ryan. And
I don't know what
just
goes through people's heads, especially when your team's winning a game and your first thought is to throw a coin.
Correct.
But you would call it out regardless, and I have called it out in games in the past when Celtic supporters have done the same and thrown objects onto the pitch. It's just not acceptable in any game whatsoever. These are 22 individuals that are trying to play football on a football pitch, and that's it. They don't deserve objects getting thrown onto the pitch. Another point that I wanted to talk about, another one of the flashpoints in the game, was Jeffrey's challenge on Nicholas Kuhn that required Nicholas Kuhn to clean up some blood on his nose, in and around his nose.
Yeah.
It was given as a yellow card. Do you think that was the right decision? Do you think it was the right outcome for that? Because I've seen a couple of angles, and it's one of those ones that, in my opinion, I think it's in between a yellow and a red. I seen Jozo Simonovic getting sent off for something very similar at Ibrox a few years back. So do you think that maybe with the intervention of VAR and the fact that technology is there, do you think that something that more could have been achieved or more could have happened with that challenge from Yefty on Nicholas Kuhn?
I saw it in real time, Ryan, and I thought it was borderline. So I wasn't surprised it went to VAR. And when they said it was a yellow card, I thought, okay, they've had the benefit of the replay and that, but it looked suspect to me because I thought he intentionally hurt him. But as I say, I've only seen it once, and it looked to me that it could have landed him in hot bother, and but you have to get the benefit of the doubt, so that's fine. These things go for you, they go against you. But it looked a bit similar to Simunovic's one, where we had the infamous linesman shouting "red card, red card, red card" before the referee.
If we can bring in some of the comments.
A chance to,
we've got Ian Thompson saying never a red, and Tam Mac saying red all day long, red all day. Says IH decorating. So there you go. It shows you that it's not clear and obvious one way or the other. So I think it's one that maybe needs to get checked by the authorities and VAR. You'll get accused of being sour grapes because your team has been beaten on the day. I just think it's one of those challenges that's in the middle. It was checked, and it's a yellow card was given.
Ryan. Yeah, it's a talking point. It was checked, a yellow card was given. So, as I say, I've only seen it once, so I had to go along with that and say, right, fair enough. If people are telling me that it was a red card, or others are saying it wasn't, then fine. I think a lot of that depends on what side of the particular fence you'll sit on. I'd need to see it again to make a more informed judgment. But I did think at the time, my first thought was borderline red, because I thought he hurt him, and the blood in the face would indicate that he hurt him. But whether or not it was accidental and he got the benefit of the doubt that way, I can't comment, because, as I say, I only saw it once, so I don't know what part of the arm or elbow or hand caught him. So I'd need to see it again. So
yep, absolutely.
I'm in the Ibrox media room in case you're wondering what all the noise is, all right, or the background noise.
Yeah. James McCrory says, as sour grapes. Listen, we've spoke about poor performance for 20 minutes. I think it was worth talking about that decision for 1 or 2 minutes. Tony, is there anything else that you want to discuss about today's game? Any talking points, any performances that stood out, both positively or negatively? I just want to give a quick shout out just before you say anything to the 944 people, 945 people that have joined us. Regardless of who you support, thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. And if you do enjoy what we do, then please subscribe to the Celtic Way. It is completely free. Press that button and be notified whenever we go live with morning briefings, pre-match, post-match, pre-recorded videos, interviews, the lot. Press that subscribe button and join us on the Celtic Way. And if you want to support us just that little bit further, for just £2.99 a month, you can receive early video access, priority comments, and exclusive members chat function by becoming a YouTube member. Tony, I'll let you say what you were going to say there, and I apologise for interjecting again.
No. What I was going to say was I don't have anything to add, because I think it was just that rank a performance, and I think sometimes you just have to accept that you were beaten by a better team today. Manager called it by saying Celtic lacked edge. Rangers didn't lack edge. You know, they were up for it from the first whistle, more or less the first whistle. Celtic in the first couple of minutes, I think. But once they get their noses in front, they were determined to win that football match. And I said at the top of the programme that the Celtic were outfought and outran, and that's a fair assessment, Ryan. Because the Rangers midfield played like their lives depended on it today. The Rangers players played like their life depended on it today. They played for a manager that was under pressure today. And whatever happens, whether it's a stay of execution or not, that you'll find that out in the fullness of time. But they played for their manager today and got him his first ever derby win. Sometimes that's enough, and regardless if they were kind of depleted, sometimes that kind of spirited performance levels that they dredge up from nowhere. And I think Celtic went in the finest shape that they can. Have gone into this fixture, and there was no real injuries. Okay, Arne Engels felt unwell. That's maybe not Brendan Rodgers' game plan, but would that have made a huge difference? I don't think so. I think today the hungrier side and the better side won. Sometimes you just have to take your medicine, take your dumps, take it in the chin, all those kind of phrases, and just move on.
That's it. And the good thing about this is that there's no winter break or anything like that to worry about. The next game is only 3 days away, and it's at St Mirren at home. So hopefully we'll see a bit of a fight back from Celtic, a bit of a response after today's disappointment. Just finally, before we let you go, Tony, what was Brendan Rodgers and I believe it was Alistair Johnson you were talking to after the game? How were they after the game? What was their mood like? What were they saying? Did they say anything that stuck out?
I think they're pretty sombre, as you would be, failing to turn up in this venue. But I think Brendan Rodgers is pretty philosophical, because he was saying what I was saying earlier on about it doesn't negate. He was asked about his thoughts. He's lost one football match all season. The players have been outstanding up until now. You know, they've dropped 7 points in the whole campaign so far. They've got one trophy in the cabinet. So one poor performance doesn't blow everything up in the air. And as I say, in terms of title damage done, it's pretty negligible, isn't it? You were in a wonderful position. You know, you were leaving here 11, 14 or 17 ahead. You're leaving here 11 ahead because you suffered a defeat. It's derby matches, that's what happens. Sometimes the foreign team don't win them, and sometimes the better team don't win them because they don't turn up, or they're beaten by a hungrier team who shows a bit of spirit and a bit of fight and a bit of battling qualities, which Rangers showed today. And it's that old analogy. Rangers won a battle today. The war's for the title. We'll see what happens in the end of May when the prizes are dished out. Fine well, Celtic turn up at that time, and that's when they come alive. So I'm pretty sure they'll come alive again. It's not.
I think you just paraphrased every single notable Brendan Rodgers quote over the past year into one sentence there. That was quite impressive from you. But it's true. It's so true.
True.
And I'm glad that you've ended it on a high note, because it's been a pretty sombre podcast. Usually we're more chirpy and cheerful, which is usually the way Celtic are, and they have been over the past couple of years. But you've got to take your dumps when they come along. Celtic were defeated by the better team today, but they still are in a very, very positive situation. 11 points clear at the top of the table. You never know. They might even get that gap back by the time the Sunday's fixtures are over and done with. You never know in this game of football. Anything can happen, and games aren't played. Games aren't played on paper. They're played on the pitch, and they were played on the pitch today. And Celtic were outplayed by a better team on the day. Is not as difficult as that is to accept, because I think the Rangers were the better team, but them's the breaks in association football, and you just have to deal with it. Thank you to everybody that's joined us on the podcast today. We've had 960 people at one point, which is absolutely incredible. Thank you to each and every one of you. Tony, thank you very much for attending the game on behalf of us. Really do appreciate it. On the website, we've got Q&As from the likes of Alistair Johnson, Brendan Rodgers, player ratings from myself, instant analysis from Tony, as well as much, much more. If you're looking for your Celtic fix, even after a 3-0 defeat, then everything is available on the Celtic Way website. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tony.
Pleasure, as always.
and we'll see you all tomorrow on the morning briefing. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your night. Cheers.